Hey Jesse, how's it going?
Hello.
I'm so
Excellent.
I'm so excited. I know I didn't even give you a chance to respond. Ah, I'm so excited to be here with you today to finally do this neurodivergent friendship video. So should we
Uh-huh.
tell the backstory to this video really quick?
Yes, we should.
Okay, Jesse and I had planned to do a neurodivergent friendship video, and we got on the Zoom call to do it like a month or so ago. And we talked for, I don't know, 2 hours. And finally, we were like, what did we schedule this meeting for? Because we hadn't talked in like face to face
A
in
while,
a
yeah.
long time.
hmm
And so Jesse's like, I don't know, I don't remember. So I looked it up and I'm like, oh, we're supposed to be making a friendship video
After a while, too.
after a long time.
It was
So,
hours.
right. So we didn't have time to do it then. So we're finally back now to do it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
Now
what
we're
we're
doing
gonna
it.
do. Yeah. But just so you know, we've just spent 2.5 hours talking before we got
Mhm.
down to actually making this video. So,
Had to get it out. Had to.
so here we go. We're going to talk about neurodivergent friendships, real life examples. I am Sara Sanders Gardner. My day job is directing the Neurodiversity Navigators program at Bellevue College, and my fun job is doing workshops and training at universities and uh, corporations for neurodiversity cultural responsiveness and for through my LLC, Autistic at Work. And Jesse, you are.
Jesse Gardner, no relation to Sarah Gardner. I am a coach and co-owner of A Life of My Own, where we do coaching and mentoring for neurodivergent students, teens, young adults.
And you also consult with parents, yeah?
Yes, we also do a lot of consulting with parents.
Yeah, super important part of what you do, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So we're going to talk about real life examples. There's another companion video that goes with this that just kind of gives an outline, but
Mhm.
we really wanted to get like our own experiences out here. So
Mhm.
let's talk about it. So first we want to talk about interaction styles, how we like to interact and how what we've seen with people that we've worked with. So Jesse, take it away.
Yeah. I have a lot of clients and also kind of myself prefer to meet online. I can control my own sensory environment a lot better when I can be in my own home. I'm also chronically ill, and so it's just easier for me to control everything that I need to control for so that I can feel good and interact in the ways that I want to interact with people when I don't have all of the rest of that going on. Um, so that's a really common thing. I have a lot of clients who also prefer asynchronous communication. So it's things like texting or like messaging on Discord, where there's not a certain amount of time that you have to respond by. And actually, most of my friends, they'll take days, weeks to respond to a text. And that's just kind of the friendship that we have. And it doesn't mean that anyone's mad at each other or whatever. And we don't feel guilt for it because we all know that we're all doing the same thing. And sometimes we just don't have the mental load to uh dedicate to responding to that. And because it's a person you know and care about, they're going to be a person who understands that and accommodates that need for you. So some of my closest friendships are that way, where, a lot of time goes by where you don't talk. And then when you're back into it, you're back into it. Um, so yeah, I think those are kind of my main modes.
Yeah, and that's how it is with us, right? We
Yeah,
we go
exactly.
for months, eight
Yeah,
months without a lot
exactly.
of communication, and then we're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my
Just
gosh,
memes
tell me what
sometimes.
happened." Yeah, exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly. And I'm very much the same as you are as far as like
Mhm.
the asynchronous communication, the
Yep.
loving to talk online. I have chronic health conditions as well, and
Mhm.
I've been feeling so much better since I've been really learning, and a lot of it I learned from you how to protect my health, right, and take care
Mhm.
of myself and have those
So important.
downtimes. However, my adult child, who also is autistic, loves to go out and get with people and go on cruises and go to heavy metal concerts. And
Mm-hmm.
they have scheduled like every Friday they go to a D&D game rather than play it online. And they have friends over for barbecues and they do all these things on a regular basis. They're very, very socially active.
Mm-hmm.
And, same family, same genetics, we're very similar in some ways, but not in that particular way. And so sometimes people like to think that all autistic people and all neurodivergent people are the same, but we're all very different. And so one of the things I think that we'd both like to get across is you really need to listen to the neurodivergent person themselves and find out what they
Yes.
like and what they want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
let's see what we have next year coming up for you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, barriers, things we've seen and experienced and seen other people experience. We've got for you here sensory, real-time processing, exposure and social anxiety, communication styles and interests and values. Let's just talk about
Yeah.
those as they come up. What do you have to say?
Yeah.
I know you came
I
up,
think,
you mentioned exposure and social anxiety, but go ahead, talk about
yeah.
what you want.
I'll start with sensory because I think it's a common misunderstanding that sensory is only sensory, like sensitivity, um, like the one way where you don't want loud noises or bright lights or whatever. And that is definitely the case for a lot of us. However, like you said, your adult child goes to concerts and things like that. I have a lot of friends who go to things like raves and stuff where if you're a sensory seeker, that's the perfect environment for you. It's loud sounds, bright
Lights?
lights. There we go. I was like, sounds no. um, but yeah, things like that, where like if you're a seeker and you're extroverted and things like that, you're going out and doing those types of things. And if you're not experiencing those specific types of social interactions, it can feel very understimulating and hard to connect with people if you don't also sometimes mix that into your like regular routine. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm the opposite of my kid that way, right? I
Right.
love silence. I love silence. And
Solitude.
I have such a hard time even going to a restaurant because
Mm-hmm.
I have to be careful where I sit.
Mm-hmm.
I, can't follow the conversation if it's noisy. So I'm very, very careful about all of that. I want to
Right.
talk about real-time processing for a minute because some people
Mm-hmm.
have a hard time. Um, Following the conversation because maybe it moves too quickly for them, or maybe it doesn't move quickly enough. So I'm the type of person when I'm listening to a video, I speed it up to double time sometimes so
Uh-huh.
I can follow it
Yeah.
because otherwise it's too slow for me. Um, or maybe they don't know when to jump into the conversation because of that
Mm-hmm.
processing
Yes.
situation, right? So it just feels very awkward to
Mm-hmm.
them. That's a processing, not necessarily a social communication
Right.
difference, right? Just a processing
Right.
difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else do you have anything to say around real-time processing that you've seen with clients?
Yeah. I definitely have had some clients who have had bad experiences with people not understanding processing and the need for more processing time. Because some people have, it's a really common misconception that people who need more processing time have lower intelligence. That's really commonly a thing that people get bullied for in school, when especially like neurodivergent people, we're paying attention to everything in our environment, every single thing, and we can't really tune it out. And so we're processing more than the average person. And so it makes sense that it takes us a longer time to process things because we're noticing things, we're trying to deal with all of the information that we're getting put into our brains and file it in the right categories and then figure out how to respond. It's all of these things that we're trying to juggle that just honestly takes more time. Like if a computer is doing a very complicated task, it takes it longer. That's just part of it. And so I think that's a really common misconception and thing that we kind of have to learn about ourselves and then learn to accept and love about ourselves, is that we do sometimes, some of us have different brains, and learning to accommodate that and be in situations, especially social situations that set us up for success. Um, and having things like texting or asynchronous communication where we can take as much processing time as we need, or at least mixing those into kind of our socializing like environment, I guess, I think is really important, and figuring out how to accommodate ourselves in the best way possible for us that feels really rewarding is key.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And, as we get older, learning to say to people, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you say that
Hmm.
again?
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that you brought up that being attuned to everything around us. I remember when I used to live in Southern California, I would always know when an earthquake was coming before everyone else because I could hear
Oh
it,
my gosh.
right? So
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
was like, talk about processing everything around us, right? We'd
Right.
all be sitting around a table talking, and I'd go earthquake, and they'd go, what? And then like a second later, the earthquake would hit, but I could hear it
Uh-huh.
coming,
Yep.
right? So yeah, so I'm paying attention to all of this while they're all just talking, right? So yes,
Right. Just the one
absolutely.
task. Yep.
Right. We
Hmm.
have a lot to deal with. Yeah.
We do. Yep.
Um, okay, let's talk about exposure anxiety for
Yeah.
one. I think not very many people know about exposure anxiety, and Donna Williams wrote a
Yes.
great book on exposure
Yes. I actually have it
anxiety.
literally right here.
Oh, good. Oh, yes. If you haven't read this book, grab that book and read it. It's an
It's very
oldie but a
good.
goodie. But you want to
It's
talk about
very
that a little
good.
bit?
Yeah, the best way that I explain it to people that kind of is the most helpful, I think, is that feeling of there are like memes about it, the I do not wish to be perceived memes. Um, that's a really common, especially autistic experience, but definitely like neurodivergent writ large. That feeling of, like when you're alone by yourself, you kind of don't have that like looking around like who's paying attention. There are a lot of people who say, growing up I felt like I was being Truman showed, and like there were cameras everywhere like watching me, and I had to be very, careful about my actions and things like that. And it's just kind of like the feeling that people are watching and judging, and just kind of you putting yourself out there is a really difficult thing for people with exposure anxiety. And exposure anxiety is more common, I think, especially in autistic people and neurodivergent people, than is talked about. Not a lot of people talk about exposure anxiety, and I think it's actually one of the most important things that we can understand about ourselves as neurodivergent people.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I think people don't know about it, but it's like just like the don't
Yeah.
look at me thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
then the social anxiety is very much mixed into that, right? Because it's a
For
don't
sure.
look at me, don't talk to me,
Yeah. Don't touch
don't
me.
don't pay
Yeah.
attention to me. I'm not
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Right. Right. I once had a client say that their ideal socializing mode was they just want to be a fly on the wall. They don't want anyone to look at them, to pay attention to them, to talk to them. They don't want to have to participate or have people wait for them to respond or interact in a certain way. They want to be part of it. They just want to observe, and everyone should just ignore them. Um, and I think it's kind of common for neurodivergent people to feel that way. Like we want to be in it, but we don't want to have certain expectations or things thrust onto us that, we can't meet, or goes against our natural way of socializing and being in the world.
And that brings up, I wish I knew if exposure anxiety was innate in us or if it
Right.
comes after we've been taught that we're not right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't know because
Exactly.
I've felt exposure anxiety for most of my life. I
Hmm.
don't think I felt it when I was youngest,
Small,
right?
small. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we probably learn
I
exposure
think so too.
anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I agree.
acceptance, understanding, super
Hmm.
important.
Very.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about communication styles because this can definitely be a barrier. And
Yeah.
I like to explain it as just like understanding language differently,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So what do you have to say about that?
I think I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay. All right. So what I mean by that is, um, maybe two things. One, I think we have a much more direct or literal
Mm-hmm.
interpretation of language many times than
Yeah.
some people. Like I like to say, words have meaning, when you
Yeah.
say
Yes.
something, that's what you mean.
Yes.
But a lot of times other people, and by other people I mean neurotypical people, will read a context into words or a
Yep.
subtext that
Mm-hmm.
isn't really there or that I don't really mean. And
Mm-hmm.
then they'll have a conversation around this imagined subtext.
Yes.
Um, and that becomes extremely confusing.
Frustrating.
Well, yes, frustrating.
Yeah.
Because like I never said that.
Right. Right. Not what I intended to communicate. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, I understand the difference between impact and intent, right?
Sure. Yep.
But then just have a conversation about did you mean to
Right.
say this? Is this
Right.
what you
Right. I need
intended?
someone to ask me. Yeah.
Right.
And to
Yeah.
be able to say, nope, this is actually what I meant. And then for the other person to go, oh, okay, cool. And almost never do people say, oh, okay, cool. They say, okay, but you said this, and that means this. Like it's a rule skywritten by an airplane in the sky that we all know and follow when, it's not. I'm not following it because that isn't really part of my neurodivergent culture.
Exactly. So, and when I talk about this in my workshops, I talk about neurodivergent culture and
Mhm.
specifically about this thing and give people the tools that they need to ask us those
Right.
questions, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love that. It makes me feel very valued and supported when a friend does that for me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Interests and values can be barriers. So talk about
Yes,
that.
big time. So as an ADHDer, if we're talking about something that really does not grab me, like if we're going deep on a history lesson about a subject that I don't care about, there's nothing I can do to make my brain love communicating about that. It's not going to happen. I can't make it happen. You can't make it happen. It's just not. If I have a friend who really is into something that I just don't connect with, I'm gonna tell him, I wanna be there with you, and I don't know that I can make myself be there with you. Um, I think that's a really common thing for people with interest-based nervous systems where we really get sparked by the things that we're very passionate about, and that's kind of the fast lane into our world. But when we don't have that, it makes it way harder.
Like almost painfully boring.
Painful. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I would describe it as a physical pain. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's true in classes as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you can always see it too. I mean, not always, but you can very often see it. Yeah.
And the same is true as values. And I think that values can actually cause like clashes, like
Oh, yeah.
arguments.
Mm-hmm.
I think many
Yeah.
neurodivergent people are very justice based,
Yes.
right? And so if we
Yes.
see something or hear something that goes against our sense of justice, that can kind of raise our hackles
Yeah.
and get
Derail
us.
the whole
I think you and I have probably had
interaction.
arguments over
Oh, for
or
sure. Yeah.
perceived values, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, and that's something that I really value about our friendship is that we will kind of hash that stuff out. And I have had past friends who don't want to hash things out. And if I bring something up, they're just like, kind of shy away from it and don't want to talk about it. And it's like, well, it's hard for me to have a close friend if I don't think we're on the same page about some pretty key stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'll
Um,
talk to you about values any day, Jesse Gardner.
yeah, exactly. That's what we do.
It is. We're not neuro shy about that at all.
We are not.
Okay, let's see what we've got next here. Online friendships.
Mm,
Okay. All right, you wanted to talk
good
about
point.
this, so
Yep.
why don't you start here?
Yes. Yes. So I talk to many parents, and I have many parents tell me, I really want for my kid kind of what I had growing up, which was like a close friend group, and we went out and did X, Y, and Z together. And they just don't have that, and that makes me really sad. And then I'll ask them later in the conversation, how does your kid spend their time? What do they like doing? And they'll say, well, they play a lot of video games online with their friends. And I'll say with their friends. And it's almost like it's really hard for people who aren't in those spaces online to understand that online friendships are real friendships, and that they're not any, really different than in-person friendships. You're still doing the same things, you're still connecting with people and talking about your lives together, and you're sharing your interests together, and it's got all of the same ingredients as any other friendship. But because other people can't necessarily see those kind of tangible things, it's hard to kind of understand and accept that those are as inherently valuable as other friendships that you see out about in the world, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you grew up without those kinds of online connections, you
Mm-hmm.
have no sense of how that even works, right?
Totally. Right.
And if you're not doing it now, so like I'm 64, but I have online friendships. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
playing online games with them, but I'm doing
Yeah.
other things online where I'm connecting with people. You can
Mm-hmm.
tell one of my intense interests is dachshunds, and I belong to some dachshund groups online, right?
Right. Yep.
So, there are many ways to have friends. My adult child, again, they love to go out, they love to do things, but they also have online groups of friends.
Yep.
And they have friends that they met in college that they are in online groups with who live now in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Yeah.
still in touch with them. And I love that because they can stay in community with those
Mm-hmm.
friends, even though
Yeah.
they've moved far away.
Right.
So
Totally.
I do want to say I had a conversation once with a father and his son, and the father was saying, he really needs to get some friends. He only has like one or two friends and he really needs more friends. And I said, "Okay, well, Dad, let's stop talking about your son for a minute. Let's talk about you. How many friends do you have?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, like one. And I said, "Okay, I think your son has enough friends then."
Yeah.
Like, so
Yep. Right.
let's just
It's
like normalize it's
mm-hmm.
okay to
Right.
not have 100 friends
Exactly.
or 10 friends. It's okay to socialize the way you socialize. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Let's see what we got. I think we're almost done. Oh, shared interests. Okay. This is my favorite page because it has all things on it.
All the
Go ahead,
things.
Jesse Gardner. What do you got to say?
So I like to always talk about with people who aren't kind of steeped in neurodivergent culture, that kind of the fast lane into our world is through shared interests, through things that you're doing together, and that you like together. And it's kind of like when you go on a first date. Like if you're just sitting across the table from someone, it's awkward as heck to just talk to a brand new person that you want to make a good impression with, right? But if you like go bowling together or something like that, it's so much easier. Like you're doing the thing together, you're mostly focused on that, and then you're talking in between, and it's so much less awkward. And for us, for neurodivergent people, all of life is like a first date. We connect so much better when there's some structure around the activities that we're doing, when there's some shared interest, and that there's something to connect with that's not just like me looking at you and connecting just at you kind of thing, because that can be really intimidating and it can just be a lot going on that you have to process, versus if you mostly are just processing that one thing, it becomes a lot easier.
Yep. Yep. And if you ever want to start a conversation with a neurodivergent person, ask them, what are you into? What
Yep.
do you know the most about that you can tell me about? And
Yes,
they will tell you for as
they
long as you want
will.
them to. And so
Yes.
you might have to tell them when to stop. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's cool too.
Yes, yes. I put these dinosaurs here. My adult child, when they were small, in first grade, the first grade teacher said to us, "I have learned that when MJ and I disagree on a scientific fact, MJ is correct." So, just so you
Yep.
know, we will know
Yep.
a lot about our subject.
We will.
Okay, so let's talk about what can you do? How can you
Mm-hmm.
support? I want to talk about family gatherings a little bit because
Yes.
you may have a neurodivergent person in your family that is not like super excited about family gatherings. And it's not because they're antisocial
Right.
necessarily. Family
Right.
gatherings require quite a bit of energy in the way of interacting with lots of different people, people that we haven't seen in a while, a lot of new places, places we haven't gone in a while, smells, temperature. I'm just remembering back to my family
Yeah,
gathering,
yes.
right? Like grandma's house smells different.
Yep.
Um, different foods, all
Uh-huh.
sorts of things that are different from our daily things that we feel comfortable with. And
Right.
then, people saying things that are maybe not, the easiest to respond to,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know. And so thinking about how you can support the neurodivergent person in being involved in family gatherings without overwhelming them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things that we have on here is pre-planning and structure. So including that in your family gathering thing,
Yeah.
having a place where they can retreat to when it gets to be too much, talking to them
My
about
favorite.
phrases they
Mm-hmm.
can say when they don't
Mm-hmm.
like what someone said to them or when they don't want to eat some of the food or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Etc. What do you have anything
Mm-hmm.
else to add to family gatherings?
Yeah. I think that yeah, just having the conversation ahead of time is so helpful. And asking someone, what are you concerned about? What are you anxious about? Because I guarantee you will have stuff that, we're not particularly looking forward to or that we're maybe overly worried about and our other family members can support us with. And then just being very down to accommodate and not a lot of the times we get stuck in, okay, but the dominant culture, um, this is expected. And that makes it really hard for some neurodivergent people to participate in the ways that are natural to us. So I think, you know, figuring out what's actually necessary in any given interaction versus, how we can be accommodated and how, we can make room in our family for the people who are actually in it.
Right. So how can you um, feel comfortable
Hmm.
and not overwhelmed at the family gathering? And how can grandma still know that you love her?
Totally.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, neurotypical and neurodivergent socializing. There is research around this called the double empathy problem,
Yeah.
which says not only do we have difficulty communicating with you, neurotypical people, you have difficulty communicating with us. It's not
Right.
just our
Two-way street.
problem, it's a problem that we all share together. And so, for most of history, the neurodivergent people have borne the burden of having to change to communicate
Right.
with you. And
Right.
now this research is saying, hey, why don't y'all step up and bear some of that burden as well?
Hmm.
So, what
Hmm.
do you have to say about that, Jesse?
Yes, I think the people in my life who I have kept in my life and, my interactions with them are easy are the type of people who I can have this type of conversation with. Like, oh, I'm used to this thing. It seems like you're used to this thing. How can we meet in the middle? And if we can have a direct conversation about that kind of thing and they're not stuck on, but my way of being or my culture is more important and better than yours, then we can have a conversation, we can totally find a middle ground and it's great. But it's when people aren't understanding or accommodating of each other's culture, and that absolutely goes both ways. Um, that, disagreements happen, miscommunications happen, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep, you're making me want to jump into a cultural iceberg conversation
I
right now.
know, right?
As
And
you
it's
know,
hard to
that's one of
not.
my
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
topics.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about interest-based activities. Do you have more
Mhm.
to add to that here?
I think just that sometimes I also like to talk to families of neurodivergent people about object-based conversations where you're talking about things outside of the self, like what have you been up to, and not how are you. Um, And so you're talking about things external to me as a person where I can communicate much better about that. If you're asking me to search my being and then somehow communicate in an articulate way to you on the fly, it's not going to go well. But if you want me to talk about like horses or music or something like that, then it's going to go great, because I've got that ready to go at all times. I'm ready to talk about those things. So I think that's a big thing that uh, other people can do to accommodate and support their neurodivergent loved ones is primarily connecting with those interest-based activities and the object-based conversations.
I love that because that actually brings up a difference in the way we communicate
Hmm.
altogether. Because when someone asks, "How are you?" we want to say how we are.
Right,
And a neurotypical person is not really wanting to hear how we
right.
are.
It's a different convention. Hmm.
Right. They want to hear, "I'm great. How are you?"
Right.
Um,
The primary driver of that question for neurotypical people is that they receive dopamine for that short interaction
right.
versus we receive dopamine for connecting about something
That's
genuine and
real.
real and interest based. Right.
Right. And so if someone wants to
It's
know how I
different.
really am, I'm going to say how
Right.
I really am, which is not
'Cause that's
always
our culture.
great. Um,
Right.
so when I taught classes at the college, I used to teach them robo phrases, which if someone says, "How are you?" you say, "I'm great. How are you?"
Uh-huh. Yep.
Just repeat it back to them.
Yep.
Um, okay, so pre-planning and structure, we talked about this a little bit with
Hmm.
family gatherings, but this really goes
Yeah.
for anything that we're going to do.
Right.
I do
Yep.
this for myself if I'm going to go
Hmm.
anywhere I'm going to go, right? I look up the route
Hmm.
ahead of time. I look up the menu ahead
Yep.
of time. I look up the venue ahead of time, all of
Yep.
those things. So
Right.
say a little more about that in your work
Yep.
with families and clients. What are you helping them do here?
Yeah. So I have a lot of families who are like, we've gone and done, this activity before. Like I'm just gonna go with bowling. Apparently that's my example for this whole thing. Like we've gone bowling before and now they seem really anxious about bowling because it's at a new bowling alley or, something's changed. And so we talk about, okay, what does that mean that the barrier is? So it means that there's, a new environment, what's different, all of that stuff. Um, and so after the fact, yes, they have anxiety. However, if you have to make changes like that, and even if it's a new thing in general, exactly what Sarah's saying, like looking up things ahead of time. If I see pictures of a venue, as many pictures as possible, I am so much less anxious going into it. If I know the start time, the end time, I'll ask people who, are my friends and have gone to that event before or a similar event, what should I expect? What types of things will the people here want to talk to me about? What should I have kind of in my back pocket ready to talk about? Because I have to think about that ahead of time. I can't just go into a situation and talk about anything at any time. I need to think about how I want to interact with people in the best way possible to put my best foot forward. And I need a lot of processing time to do that. And so pre-planning, I call it previewing, situations really helps me to do exactly that, to have that processing time that I need and not feel like, it's a social pop quiz of, you're in this situation. You're expected to do this. Everyone's mad because you're not, like I don't like any of that. It makes me very anxious. So if I can have the pre-planning aspect, it kind of takes away all of that.
Right. And to that point, I like to make myself or give someone a little social packet, not a social packet, but just a planning packet
Hmm.
of that stuff, right?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
the steps, how to get there, what it looks like,
Hmm.
what you're going to do when you get there, in
Hmm.
writing because I'm not going to remember
Yes.
everything that someone told me or that I looked up
No.
before. So
Hmm.
I like whenever I travel, I have a packet. Whenever I go somewhere, I have a
Hmm.
packet. I usually write
Yep.
down, usually in my phone, like what I'm going to order because I don't
Yes.
remember those things.
Yes.
So keep in mind, most of us don't have a great short-term memory.
Right.
We've got a really
Yep.
good long-term memory, so it's hard to
Yes.
realize that we don't have a good short-term memory.
Yep.
But anyway, so along those lines, though, when something's changing. I was
Mm-hmm.
in my 30s. I did not know that I was autistic at that time, but it suddenly struck me one day when the restaurant we'd been planning to go to was closed and we couldn't go
Mm.
there,
Mm.
that I didn't do well with change
Yep.
because I
Yep.
was very upset and no one else was bothered. Like in this group of
Uh-huh.
like six people, they were all
I'd
like,
be
okay,
upset
well, we'll
too.
just go somewhere else. And I was like, no, it's
Ah,
here.
the
And
sky is falling.
I was very upset. And I realized because I had planned for everything, right? Like I
Yeah.
knew what I was going to order. And
Oh yeah.
so Jesse had this great thought around communicating changes, and that was like ask the person beforehand how they would like changes communicated. So say more
Mhm.
about what you said, because you said some great things.
Yeah, so I have just kind of like a list of ground rules for people who are my loved ones, and that my main kind of like ask or accommodation that I request is I need to know about big changes 24 hours before. Like there are always like the restaurant being closed or whatever unexpectedly, like especially if it's not posted online or whatever. Like things are going to happen, right? Like it's not a hard and fast rule, and I'll have to learn how to like use my coping skills in that moment when that happens. However, I need my loved ones to know I need 24 hours of notice before any changes. So that means I am doing as much previewing as possible 24 hours before so that I can get my brain and my nervous system to the place that it needs to be for those changes. And it will take me 24 hours to do that. The
Well,
full 24 hours.
right. So asking the person how much time do you need for
Right.
changes? But then and then also
Hmm.
just for me, knowing that change was hard for me helped me navigate change more,
Yeah,
right? So the
totally.
more you can know about yourself,
Hmm.
which is why we have the classes that we have at Bellevue College, just a little plug for those classes because
Yes.
they help you
So
know
helpful.
yourself. And then
Hmm.
I'm sure the work you do with your clients helps them know themselves as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think we're almost done here because we've been a half an hour already. Yes, we are. Okay, here we go. If you want to hear more from either one of us, Jesse does coaching and parent consults at alifeofmyown.com. There's their super cool rocket logo. And I do workshops and keynote addresses. And there's me at Autistic at Work. We're going to leave this up here for a little bit so you can grab our QR codes and contact us. Any last words, Jesse Gardner?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you for joining us today to hear more about neurodivergent friendships. And super great to spend time with you, Jesse Gardner, no
Always
relation.
great.
When we used to work together and we used to have to put that on our bylines, as directed by Human Resources. So that
Yes,
was super
we are not
fun.
related.
Oh, also, by the way, if you want those neurodiversity stickers that we had throughout this presentation, contact either one of us. We can send you the link. They are free.
Awesome.
All right, bye. Stop recording.